Hello everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you today, but I will see you all for our conferences next week, and then we'll meet as a whole class for peer review next Friday. Today in class you're going to be working on your RS4s if you have not yet finished them. They're due at midnight. And if you have finished that, you can go ahead and get started on your project too. So we've talked a lot about rhetorical analysis in the last few weeks. We've also done RS3 over your main text that you'll be looking at in Project 2.1, unless you've made another arrangement with me, and a couple of you have. And then also, that text you're analyzing for today, RS4, will help you write your project too. So we've looked at this assignment sheet together a couple of times. What I want to do today, just to make sure that everything is clear, is walk through the rubric as well. So if you take a look at this page, it looks slightly different for me than for you, but mostly the same. This is the first draft. It's 2.1. Remember, you're going to be revising it. But also remember that both papers are worth the same number of points. Your revised version of the paper does not replace your grade for this paper. And we're looking for different things. So even though you will be revising this paper, it's something that you want to take seriously because it's still worth 100 points, and I'm going to be grading it as if you weren't revising it. And then your revisions will be graded as revisions. So looking at the assignment sheet, we've talked about a lot of this before, and some of the things that we're doing are going to be very similar to what you've done in your research summaries and in your annotated bibliography. So let's just look through it specifically. You're writing a rhetorical analysis on a viewpoint argument about your local controversy. Okay? You're going to analyze and evaluate that viewpoint argument, and hopefully this is the same text that you talked to me about when you pitched your RS4, either your RS3 text or something else from Project 1. You're also going to want to have that RS4 text with you to supplement and provide context. So just like it says here, we are going to be looking at the rhetorical analysis. Where is this argument strong? Where is it weak? When is it persuasive? When is it not persuasive? And above all, who is it persuasive to? Who are they writing for? And what could they have done differently for a different audience, or just to be better for the audience they were writing to? Okay, so hopefully you asked yourself many of these questions when you were looking for your supplemental text. But you're going to definitely ask them now. Who wrote this? Where was this published? Who cares about that publication? Who cares about that issue? Why should we trust that source? Why should we believe what they say? What do they hope to make us feel? And do they actually provoke any emotions? Do they use any language that provokes those emotions? Do they use examples that provoke those emotions? And then what kind of evidence do they have to support their reasons? So if you think back to some of the structural arguments that we've looked at before, if you're going to talk to me about evidence, you're first going to have to talk to me about the claims, the reasons for those claims, and then maybe some of the unspoken warrants that maybe the author hasn't fully considered or has intentionally left out. And then ultimately you're going to evaluate whether this is a good argument or bad, or whether it's a mostly good argument that could have been improved, or whether it's a mostly bad argument that had some good points. Now your paper is going to be about 4 to 7 double-spaced pages in MLA formatting with full citations in the text and a works cited page at the end. That is standard for you guys. You guys are doing really well with your MLA citations and your formatting, but be sure that you keep that up here. And you're going to find, if that sounds like a lot, you're going to find that a lot of this paper is going to be taken up with things that are very, very familiar for you. So let's look at the rubric. Okay. The first thing you're going to do is introduce the controversy. And you can see the point breakdown over here. But when I say the first thing that you do, I mean this should probably be the first paragraph of your paper. And this should sound very, very similar. It's much like your research summary and your Project 1. You're just going to clearly, specifically, and objectively describe this controversy overall. That should be very, very familiar for all of you. Show why it's relevant for Central Texas. Make sure that I have a sense of what you're talking about before you launch into talking about the article. And then you're going to provide a summary of your main source. This should be very similar to your RS3, and maybe you will have revised that from your RS3 feedback. Then you're going to provide some contextualization for the main source. This is something that is going to be very, very similar to what you're doing in RS4. I want to know where this source fits into the controversy, and you want to use that supplemental source, and maybe other things, but at least that supplemental source from a research summary 4 to help me understand this writer's position in the rhetorical situation that they're in. Where are they coming from? Who are they writing to? Who are they writing for? And how do you know that? Show me where they fit into the conversation about that controversy. And then this is where we get into the new stuff. You're going to do a rhetorical analysis, an audience analysis, and ultimately evaluate your argument. So just to back up, if you consider that first paragraph an introduction to the controversy, your next paragraph a summarization of your source, another paragraph giving me some sense of the context around that source, and those two could be switched in order if you feel like that your paper lends itself to that. You've got 3 paragraphs right there. Then you're going to move into your rhetorical analysis, your audience analysis. Those can be separate paragraphs also. So when you're doing your rhetorical analysis, I want to know exactly what we've been drawing on the board. You're not going to draw in the paper, but you are going to describe what the author's main claim is, if there are any subclaims, any gables in the roof of that argument, like we've talked about, the reasons for the claims, and the evidence provided to substantiate those claims. This is a great place, too, to make note of unspoken warrants, even though you'll return to that later when you're evaluating the strength of your source. So I want a description. What do you find? What you don't want to do in this paragraph is just make me a list or try to draw an outline or give me bullet points. That might be okay to do when you're working through your rough draft, but you want to ultimately craft this into a paragraph that describes the article to me as succinctly as possible, but also as thoroughly as you can. So, tall order there. And then audience analysis, this is where you're going to talk about the appeals and the strategies that the writer uses. What kind of language? How have they chosen the examples? Are they trying to get us to trust them and their authority? We talked a lot about how John Taylor Gatto did that. Or are they trying to use pathos in the choices that they make and in what they choose to show you as ultimate results? And also, remember, tone plays a lot into whether or not pathos is being used. And then finally, how good is the logic? You're going to get into a lot of the logic when you talk about the rhetorical analysis and the argument structure, but how much does that play into the ultimate appeal to the audience? This is also the place where you want to pull in some of that context and the information that you may have gathered through your RS4 to tell me who you think this writer thinks they're writing to, and how do you know that? What clues do they give you? Okay. Then ultimately, the last paragraph that you write should be your overall evaluation of the argument based on the last 2 analyses you did. So here, this is where you want to talk about what maybe was missing. What could the author have done to speak better to a specific audience or to speak better to you as the critical reader? But it's also a place where you can praise the article. If they did a wonderful job of supporting their points and you feel like they had an effective use of the ethos and the pathos that they did include, then this is where you say that. Okay? And the answer doesn't have to be all good or all bad. A lot of the things we've looked at, great elements. Maybe something was a little bit lacking in the end, or maybe there was something that held you back from being fully persuaded, or maybe you agreed, but there were still things that you felt like could have been improved. This is you essentially grading and giving feedback to the author of this argument. Finally, you want to cite your sources in MLA style, both in the body of your text and in your works cited page. And then the last criteria on which you'll be graded is the clarity of your writing, your tone, and your mechanics. You're all doing a great job so far this semester with both of those elements, but be sure that you include some attention to those as you're proofreading and editing your papers. And that's it. That's 100 points. You'll notice the largest point values go to the new relatively new, argument analysis and rhetorical analysis and audience analysis, elements that we've been working on for the last few weeks. But 30 points, so almost a third of your grade, comes from things we've already been doing and that you should feel very comfortable with at this point. All right? So you will be meeting with me next week in your conference to show me where you are with this assignment. It's ultimately going to be due October 30th, which is a Monday, but next Friday, so 1 week from today, you're going to be peer reviewing one another in class. So we will meet as a whole class next Friday. We will not meet Monday or Wednesday as a group, but I will see each of you before we come in for peer review. Please come in ready to show me where you are with your assignment and what questions you have. I hope this has been helpful for you. Your sub will be able to answer questions as well. She is teaching a section of 306. They are also working on this assignment. So good luck, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you next week.